Hello guys and welcome back to a new video. If you will enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments to help me boost this video. Thanks. Story 1. I stole 50 pounds minus 80 pounds a day from my summer job when I was younger. I used to work at a hand car wash when I was 16 for during the weekends, and then 4/5 days a week during the summer holidays. And the owner didn't treat me or the other employees very well, constantly paying us late, speaking to us like SHT, and expecting us to work 8 10-hour shifts with no breaks unless the car wash was quiet. Cars used to be priced based on their size, so a small car was 5 pounds, medium was 7 pounds, and large was 8 pounds, and then vans and similar sized vehicles were 10 pounds plus. I was usually on the drying and taking payment duty, so after a few weeks I got fed up with the way I was treated by the owner and started to occasionally put the wrong size car through the till and put the extra in my pocket. So 7 and 8 pound cars were going in the till as a 5 pounds car, and I was then profiting 2/3 quid. At first I only did it a couple of times a day, mainly because it wasn't busy enough during the first few months of the year. But once summer came around, it was a whole different story. Warm weather meant we were very busy. When I had finished the school year, I picked up some extra shifts. And instead of charging the wrong amount on the till, I just started pocketing the whole amount. Did this to every 3 cars, or so too, and no one ever found out. I was getting a good 50 quid extra a day minimum on the busy days, and probably stole around 2 divided by 3K over the space of the year, with the bulk of it coming from the summer, which for a 15-year-old who had no bills to pay, etc., was a large amount of money, and I'd have my wages on top of that. I lived like a king for a while. Story 2. I have stolen 3,400 pounds in uniforms and equipment over the last year in the changing rooms. Pretty straightforward, I'm a massive fucking kleptomaniac. I have kept a stash of ties, blazers, hats, and fancy pens. I added it all up, and there was about 3,400 pounds. 30 blazers, 60 ties, 50 hats, and about 20 higher-end pens. They keep forgetting to lock the changing rooms, so at some random points I'll disappear. Steel blazer, a few ties, if I'm feeling funky, a shoe, always just one sometimes, from my friends, just so there isn't a pattern. I don't know why, but they haven't done anything about it. Story 3. When I was 11, I stole my teacher's USB, and I had a terrible idea. When I was 11 years old, my teacher left his USB on the table while leaving class, and I secretly took it. I hated my teacher. Then I went home and plugged the USB into my computer. My plan was to put a porn video inside the USB. When the teacher came to the classroom, I was going to leave the USB on the table, and he would plug the USB to the smart board, and he would see that video and open it. The whole class would watch that video. But at the last moment, I gave up doing this and gave the USB back to the teacher normally. I may have made mistakes while typing. My English is not very good. Story 4. I used to steal pizza from the restaurant I worked at in college. I worked at a local pizza place where I went to college as a delivery driver. After a couple months, I went out for a delivery, and the customer didn't answer the door. I tried calling the customer, and they still didn't answer. My manager said to come back because there was another delivery. At the end of my shift, she said that I could have the pizza if I wanted it. As I ate this pizza with my roommate, I came up with the idea that he could order a pizza right before close and just not answer the door. The next week, he called in an order with our address about 30 minutes before close. I drove there and we smoked a bowl, and then I went back. And just like I planned, we got free dinner. We did this several times over the next couple months until I switched jobs. I wouldn't feel bad if it was a big chain like Domino's, but since it was a mom and pop shop, I felt bad. Story 5. When I was a young woman, I hit a custom-made truck and lied. When I was 20, I had brought in my car I share with my then-boyfriend at the time for an oil change. I parked next to this big custom-made Ford 35O. My car at the time was a Ford Focus, and I thought I had the clearance. My car scrapped the underside of this truck and scuffed my headlight. I told the tech someone had backed up over my car at work and asked how I could fix the scuffs they advised me how to, and I thanked them for it. To the owner of the truck, I am incredibly sorry for hitting your truck. I know realistically I probably did minimal damage, but it still eats at me years later. And I hope you understand I punish myself for it daily over it. Story 6. I'd been drinking to get through work for the past 2 months. I've had an issue with alcoholism in the past, and I'm not even supposed to be drinking in the first place. Today, though, was too much for me, and I drunk cried in the bathroom. I'm not supposed to be intoxicated at all at my job, and I just feel really guilty about it. I feel really weak and pathetic for being unable to handle working like a normal person. Story 7. I lit a birthday card on fire I got from my grandfather after Fallout. So this was a year or so ago. Me and my grandfather used to be very close. Sometime after COVID lockdown, we had falling out because he would constantly verbally abuse me, oftentimes calling me fat, and other things related to my weight. Anyways, a few months after the fallout, I got a birthday card with a check in it. I believe it was $100, but I really don't remember the exact amount. Anyways, I got a lighter and a shitload of WD-40 and made like a flamethrower type thing and lit the card and check. I've never told anyone about me lighting it on fire, mainly because if I would have told my mom is because she would have been pissed and said, well, I could have had the money. Anyways, my grandfather, who still keeps in touch with my mom, asked if I ever got the card, and I said no. I told my mom he can keep his money, and I don't need it. Now I may have lost out on a $100, but at least I still have my pride. Story 8. I drove my parents' car several times without them noticing. I'm 21 years old. I live in Europe, and I took the car from my parents the second time today without asking them for permission. It's a sportive 5-seater with a pretty strong engine. I don't want to go into detail. I just couldn't resist taking the chance to take the car out for a good ride, as the reviving sound really makes you want to hear it over and over again. One time I took the car out and drove with my closest friends in the city. No, they don't only know me because of the car, lol. And today I took it out the second day and drove it alone. I know it's completely senseless, but I just can't resist doing that, as the option to do so is not given very often. Story 9. When I was younger, I would make fake puke at 3 a.m. to get out of school. Now, let me preface this by saying I was clearly in no way a normal child. Most kids would simply go to their parents' room, say, "Mommy, I'm sick," and proceed to get a day off school. I did no such thing. I nearly never got sick. I'm not sure if it was just my immune system or a lack of being exposed to shit, but I think I got sick 2 times from grades 1-9. By sick, I mean sick enough to puke. I was always jealous of the kids that were able to get out of school because they were sick, since I never got to miss school. So when I wanted to get out of having to go, I would sneak into the kitchen at 3 in the morning, take some leftovers, and shove them into a Tupperware container with some hot water. I would then take the leftover mush and dump it into the toilet at a reasonably puke-sounding rate and fake gag. This would normally wake up my mom, as her room was right next to the bathroom. I'd then shove the Tupperware container in the cupboard under the sink and wait for her to come in. I knew I only did this 4-ish times over the course of several years, but it worked every time. Totally don't know if my mom caught on or knew, but I feel like there's no way she couldn't have known. Just thought I'd share and see if anybody else was as weird as me growing up, lol. Story 10. I put something back to make someone else think they broke it. This isn't as bad as some things I've seen, but I feel bad. So last year when I was doing the dishes, I broke the hand sprayer thing. I put the handle back onto it and then put the sprayer back in its spot. The next day my fiancé was doing the dishes and picked it up, and when they went to use it, it broke. They felt bad and apologized, but I said it was okay and bought a new sprayer and replaced it. They still bring it up sometimes and I feel bad. Story 11. When I was 16, I did work experience at a medical center and read files of my classmates. Look, I know it sounds bad, but I don't think anyone told me we couldn't do that. Anyways, it was for a week, and I was at a medical center as a receptionist. So you know, booking people in and canceling amongst other duties. And whenever I was bored out of curiosity, I would look up people I knew and see their medical history, and that is only if they attended that center. And only a few years after that I realized how bad of a thing it was. I truly didn't think it was an issue, and I'm surprised I had access to people's files in the first place, being a student on work experience. I won't divulge what I saw on those files, but I've never forgotten about this. And I feel bad that I knew things about people that probably wouldn't have told me their medical issues. Anyways, curiosity isn't always a good thing. Story 12. Hit another car and haven't told anyone, my parents or the car owner. I'm 16 years old and was always told that I was a great driver. 2 days ago, when I was trying to leave work, I hit the rear end of a truck in the parking lot. Not to make any excuses, but rather to explain the context. Where I work, the parking lot is very tight. I had a long shift and was eager to get home and enjoy the rest of my Sunday. I had got out of the parking spot, but went the wrong way and got to a do not enter sign. As I was already frustrated, I got even more frustrated. I had basically started a K-turn to try and turn around and go the other way. I wasn't paying attention, and on my passenger side bumper I hit the rear end of a parked truck. When I backed up, I saw there wasn't any structural damage to the truck, so out of a moment of stupidity, I just drove off. When I got home, I checked the damage to my car, and it wasn't horrible. I told my parents that I had hit an extension of the garage, which was believable because my dad had done the same thing before. My parents were not mad and kind of just laughed it off. My dad was able to get the dent out, and just a few scratches were left. Now I sit here unable to sleep with the guilt settling in. The moment keeps replaying in my head, and I literally cannot sleep. I keep thinking to myself, if I actually did damage the truck and just didn't notice. I work on again on Thursday, and I'm scared to death that the owner of the truck reported it and told the restaurant I work at. There is definitely a camera that could have saw it. This morning driving to school, I literally could not stay focused as the crash was all I was thinking about. I don't know what to do. Story 13. When I was really young, there was a girl everyone bullied, so I went along with it too. It's crazy how much your peers can influence you, especially when you're really young. In elementary school, there was this girl everyone picked on for some reason. I think mainly because she was an easy target, as she was small in size, and she was much poorer than the rest of us. She was a very sweet girl, but everyone bullied her, and I went along with it. I feel so bad now for those saying I deserved the same treatment. I was literally 5. I never actually harassed or anything. I would just refuse to be friends with her. It was the other kids who actually bullied her. I know staying silent when I know it's wrong isn't better, but Simon, I was literally a kid. Story 14. We were marking our physics tests, and I changed my grade. I'm writing this on a burner account because I'm scared the school will find this somehow. We were given our physics tests to mark with a red pen in the lesson. The teacher didn't know that I also happened to have a blue pen, which was also the color that I used in the test. As we were marking the test, I would change my answer to the right answer. I should have gotten an 81%, but with the changes I made, I get 100%. I feel guilty. This was wrong, and we were trusted not to cheat like this. I might have done this to make my parents proud of my grade, but if they knew I cheated, they definitely wouldn't be. Story 15. Little me in the 5th grade noticed that there was clear fishing line in the kit for the science lab, so I made a tripwire. I took a length of it and tied one end to one desk leg, and the other side to the leg of an adjacent desk. I watched and got one kid with it who fell, and was very confused and was amused and thought how clever I was. So the moral of this story is little kids will find the darndest ways to be evil to one another. Story 16. I disabled appliances in my house because my landlord refused to pay for oil she used. I thought I won the lottery when I moved into a new house a friend had recently bought. She bought the house for the sole purpose of renting it out, and I decided to rent the top floor, making it my own little studio with a big roof terrace. The bottom floor had their own outside area. The way it was explained to me, the roof terrace was part of my studio. The house used to be a hostel and was sold with everything still in it, and it was quite a mess. I got a few friends over for the weekend to clean everything up, buy a few new things like outside furniture, and make it look pretty. It was hard work, but afterwards it looked amazing, especially the roof terrace, which I turned into my own slice of meditation, lounge heaven. After about a month, my friend decided she was going to move out of her own house to rent it out and make more money and move in with us, but there was no room available, so I wondered what her plan was. Turns out she wants to take part of the roof terrace and turn it into her room. So I argued it was part of what I rented. Turns out she meant I could use it while she allowed it, but it wasn't part of my rental. Of course we argued, but when it got to the point of fighting and losing a friend and a house, I decided to budge and adjust the roof terrace to fit her room. To her credit, she only took 60 SQ feet, but it was a sign of things to come. Long story short, she was cheap, was slow with fixing things around the house, always sought the cheapest solutions that would break again quickly, would put a timer on the hot boiler so there would often be no warm water for showers, would constantly complain about leaving lights on, etc., etc. But what finally pushed my buttons to my confessional was when she took my motor oil, a full gallon, and put it in her car. When I came home and saw it missing, she first denied until she couldn't deny no longer. She then admitted but refused to pay for the replacement. We had a huge fight, and I told her I'm going to look for a new house. In the weeks following, I disabled the washing machine, the oven, the fridge, the locks, and her car. She had to fix all of them, costing her way more than just replacing my oil. She never suspected it was me for some reason, and I left 3 weeks later, never to speak to her again. I never told anyone cause it makes me look petty and vindictive, but I'm not sorry at all, maybe even a little bit proud that I stood up for myself. Story 17. I logged into my science computer and changed my grade. I am in the 8th grade. I absolutely suck at science, and my grade was a low B. Being a reckless 7th grader I was, logged myself into his computer at lunch and gave myself all A's on the projects, labs. This would have been all right, but my science teacher gave me suspicious looks, which made me very paranoid. Also, the week after that, I got called into the office for a scholarship because I had the highest grades in science. Needless to say, I had a hard time explaining what I did to the office. Story 18. I lied that I used homemade custard in the trifle, as my mum is too posh. I didn't feel bad at all. So the first Xmas I made the trifle, my mum insisted you had to use homemade custard. So I did, and added yellow food coloring to make it look similar to store-bought. The next year I couldn't be arsed and used bought custard. Mum asked if I used homemade custard, so I said I didn't. The look on her face looked like she might cry, like Xmas was ruined, and I somehow turned it into a joke, and she thought I was tricking to wind her up and found it funny. She never knew and couldn't taste the difference. But it was a big risk, and it'll just make homemade next year way too close a call. Story 19. When I was in college, I worked the door at a bar and pocketed a couple $100 in cover money. It was a football Saturday, and I worked at one of the best and busiest bars on campus. A friend had helped me get the job, and when I met the owner, he turned out to be a huge douche. He was one of those guys that peaked in college and pretended like he was still a student. The dude was in his mid-40s. He would get belligerently drunk and hit on girls at the bar and invite them out on his boat on the weekends. Just a total creep. He had favorites that worked for him and could care less about the rest that worked there. Anyway, we were charging cover that morning, and the bar was packed with tons of people waiting outside to get in. Me, being a broke college student, decided to just start pocketing some of the money. I worked from 8 a.m. to the end of the game and was sliding cash in my pocket here and there. It wasn't until I got home that I realized how much I had took. It was around $300. I felt bad for taking that much at first, but then I remembered that my boss was a douche. And, well, frankly, I needed drinking money. I ended up getting away with it because there was so many people in and out that day that there's no way anyone could say the cover money was short. He was too drunk to even notice. That was the only time I did it. I ended up quitting a couple months later because I just couldn't tolerate it anymore. Story 20. I have a borrow problem and I know I should stop. It all started with a friend where she'd show me all these nice things she got. I remember judging her, how does she not get caught, and being offended when she gave me something that was stolen rather bought. And her dad gives her quite a lot of money, and she RLY has no need for stealing, but tends to spend most on weed. First time I went with her, I got 2 small things only that I needed. Then it turned into a spree for fun, and next thing you know my table was full of things I wanted and needed. I only get things twice a year, on Christmas and my birthday, so I really never get to get too much personally. So even getting clothes and feeling like I can fit in more having things. It's just a shame when others see I steal like a friend or my sister. That it's like jobs are never hiring, and managers are always demanding so much labor. There's no easy way of side money, and it's just something I've looked forward to in a sense where I could just steal and get away with it whenever I go to a store. It does make me feel guilty, like I wish I didn't start. It's just I've always been the friend passing on food a lot, or doing cute small things cause I just wouldn't have things like that. And I probably will stop since it's not worth trouble in the future. Story 21. I hit a parked car and didn't leave a note, now am completely paranoid. This is completely my fault, and I don't have any excuses. Earlier today I hit a car in a store parking lot, and a man witnessed the whole thing. I'm a teenager and a new driver, so the only thing that was going through my head is if my dad finds out I won't be able to drive again. A day later I still feel extremely guilty, and am paranoid, just waiting for either cops to show up anytime this month, or my dad to get a phone call from insurance. I wish that I had left a note, but completely panicked and left. Now is there anything I can do, or I just wait for someone to contact me?